Hi there, my name is Tom. I'm co-founder of Nordoon, and I will be your host today. Just briefly about Nordoon. We are using AI agents to automate supply chain operations in a day. And today's topic that we are covering, that is AI in supply chain, we're doing with a special guest. Our guest is Ed Lawson. He's a managing director at Intent Group. So Ed works closely with supply chain professionals and leaders to capture the trends in supply chain. And he's also doing a yearly report on the latest trends that we're going to have a closer look today, which is focused on AI. And this is what we're going to be covering in the next 40 minutes and trying to answer three main questions. So what is the killer app in supply chain? What is driving ROI ROI with AI? And of course, what is quite topical today, how agents and humans can work together. And we're going to also accompany our discussion with a poll and Q&A session in the end. All the answers are anonymous, so feel free to post your questions there. Actually, we're going to start with a poll right now. I'm just going to launch it here. So, and without further ado, I would ask Ed. So, hi, Ed, welcome.
Hi, Tom. Thank you.
Hi there. To do introduction, also maybe talk a bit about Intent Group, what you do, and also to talk about report, right? So what's the background? What is the methodology? Who is involved in this poll?
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Thanks for the intro. So I'm Ed Lawson. I run Intent Group. As Tom said, it's a network of supply chain directors, primarily, usually mid-sized organizations, right up to the largest. And we run meetings, we run discussions, and we put together a guide every year that is trying to actually canvass people's opinions, their experiences, what they're thinking, and then be able to share that back to people. So we looked at AI this time in order to give people that broader perspective of what are people actually doing, what have been their experiences, and what might they effectively, where do they see the killer app? That turned out to be the main question of interest to people. So it was around 70 sort of detailed conversations with people to actually get into the sort of granularity of what they're thinking, what they're seeing. And yeah, all the feedback was confident, all the conversations were confidential, and it's anonymized so that people could be quite open and honest. So it builds up that picture for people.
So just for better understanding, what are the typical verticals, or maybe you have like a distribution in verticals
Yeah,
so the
yeah,
professionals that collaborated.
yeah, absolutely. So very strong in sort of FMCG, in manufacturing, consumer goods generally, I would say,
Mhm.
with some retail, some pharmaceutical in there. That's the primary input. And we tried to speak to, I guess, a variety, got a variety of perspectives. Probably it's easier to categorize the general feedback in terms of large versus the small organizations and how they're viewing things. But obviously there are commonalities across all the groups.
Okay, thank you for that answer. So maybe
Yeah.
just to also for the audience, what is the typical profile of or persona that you talk to? So what is their position within the organizations?
So it's generally supply chain directors. Those that's our sort of core persona.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds great.
Yeah.
So maybe to kind of also already dive into it and
Hmm.
have a closer look on those enterprises and the discussions that you had with them. So perhaps, let's touch the topic on where enterprises stand on AI, right? So
Hmm.
maybe you can talk about a bit, what are the trends do you see in enterprises when they're trying to adopt AI?
Yeah, I mean this is the really interesting thing about enterprises, isn't it? I think you get a complete range of perspectives. You get what you see with all companies, I think, which is a general fear. fear of the unknown, fear around data security, fear around general security of these things. And with all that's going on in the world, it's understandable that there's a reticence. But at the same time, there's a definite sense of fear of being left behind as well. I think that's driving a lot of people to action. They know that they need to do things. They know that they can't stand still. It's not one of those things because of the pace of change. I don't think they feel like they can sort of sit there and let's just see what happens for the next year. Everyone knows that things are moving so quickly that they need to act. So they need to be exploring, they need to be looking at the real problems and where the value they can create is in their organization. And they need to be sort of, and some of them have a broader thing. Some of them will look and say, actually, we can look top down. We can look at what are the capabilities of this technology and how do we apply it. Whereas the sort of more mid-sized organizations will say, no, 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 we don't have the capacity to do that. We have to look at the real world, the cost leakage, the inventory, the massive inventories that were sitting on the waste, and then how do we solve those actual problems?
So I think if kind of to summarize that, you would say they're
Mm.
like mostly in the POC piloting phase, or versus that, so just hands-on, let's try this, learn something, or it's like more preparing. I see also a lot of these, talking to different customers. They say, well, we have to prepare first, we have to define the processes, versus let's more pragmatic, more US way of doing things, like let's just go try, show some value, and then figure out how to scale this.
Yeah, I mean it's funny, isn't it, Tom? But it's like the average consumer perspective as well. Everyone's using ChatGPT now. Everyone has dabbled with it, or a lot of people will say we use it every day. And there are very concrete, real world things that you can go on for free. You can get answers straight away. You can see the power of the solution versus the more longer term. How can this actually help in supply chain? I think people when you look at it, the overall trends seem to be that people are saying, look, supply chain's about data, right? It's about masses of data. We can see how AI can help us digest that and distill that into something meaningful, and it can remove the human bias. What we can't see is right now, what a lot of organizations will say they can't see is how AI is going to tell them something they don't already know. Statistically brilliant, but how's it going to suggest something that, how's it going to help us with predicting the future effectively, which is what demand planning and demand forecasting is all about, right?
Yeah, I completely agree with you, right? So, and one of the main topics and very important topic is definitely data quality. It's being we've been talking about this for decades, right? And it's still here.
Mm.
And this time, I think the necessity to kind of tackle this issue is even greater due to the fact, as you said, right? So with ChatGPT, and expecting that everything works seamlessly and kind of jump between the silos and just gather data and then contextualize it. It's like, well, we wanted this. We see applications so many ways. So maybe from that perspective, right, to kind of compare, okay, this is the future, this is where we want to go, but still there are internal processes, right, like in every company. And then, as you said, while we can go and say, let's try things, let's try new things,
Mm.
versus, well, everything right has to make some sense, and usually that's ROI, right? So how do you see, talking to your, to your colleagues, how they measure AI success and ROI compared, AI versus old, or let's say other technology investments from the past?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that actually surprised me with the work that I did to put together this guide, Tom. I thought that you know is AI going to take my job? It was one of the things that we could read in hundreds of articles each day, right? Or each week. But one of the things that surprised me was that most people are not looking at AI as a way to reduce headcount. They don't see it that way, or then they're certainly not telling me that they see it that way. Um, I think I think if you go into a warehouse, you can understand how we can have a piece of software that actually controls cobots or robots, and that can take away, three workers on the factory floor or in the warehouse, because it can be controlled automatically. In a pure supply chain context, it's not really seen that way. Um, of course, there's going to be an impact down the line, but that's not what people are basing their ROI on. That's not what they're going to the business and saying. They're not saying, look, I can get rid of all my planners. We can do touchless, we can do self-driving supply chain, all these sort of buzz phrases. They're not seeing it that way. They're seeing it as a tool for augmentation. They're seeing it as, yes, we can remove some of the mundane aspects of what planners have to do, for example. And we can focus on working on the MPD, which is the million dollar question for every business. We can automate logistics. We can automate customs. We can automate the paperwork. But they're not seeing it as actually we're going to take out 50% or we're going to take out 90% of our headcount for the most part. That seemed to be, that's very much the trend that I saw.
Okay, sounds great. You have some really nice crowd, like forward-looking crowd that you talk to. And that's great, right? So these are kind
Mm.
of, I guess, industry leaders as well, right? So looking
Yeah.
into the future, this is kind of changing the landscape here. And maybe from other perspective, what I hear a lot as well, right? So there's still, maybe you have these individuals, but they're still put in the system where at the end of the day, you have to look at the bottom line. So you have a
Mm.
bottom line, like, are
Mm.
you looking at now or maybe
Yeah.
in 5 years, 10 years? They're
Yeah.
still right. The kind of gold standard is the head count. So how much can I
Yeah.
reduce the head count? It's
Yeah.
still very important.
Yeah.
Maybe because it's the most tangible way how to show the savings, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you are in productivity or in productivity increase business, at the end it's headcount, right? So it's the only
Yeah.
measurable, more or less the only measurable thing that is
Exactly.
going to show in the balance sheet. That's the only issue sometimes that I see. And I completely agree with you. Also, I would add on top of that is that what we see with our customers as well is that on one side we have cases implementing AI, let's say agents, where we see rapid ROIs, right? I can just
Mm.
name a couple of case studies, for instance, that is in the sales operations, in the CPG industry, manufacturing company,
Mm.
where they are managing manually so high number but low in value orders that come through emails, right? And
Yeah.
this is a task that is doing or is done by one lady that she's going to retire in 6 months. And they
Yeah.
were actually considering just to say, okay, well, not sell to these customers because EDI is just too expensive to set up for such a low volume per customer. There's a lot of them. And we're going to just lose that part of revenue. Okay, it's too expensive. And actually, we did that and basically here AI agents are capable, take whatever format in and kind of structure it, understanding, and push it towards the ERP so that you automatically open a sales order. And this is one way. The other way, maybe another case, working on with a large logistic company where we automated, for instance, warranty validations of their assets. So basically, taking the repair invoices, resolve it, prepare the claim, warranty claim, and push it towards the OEMs. This is,
Yeah.
let's say, for trucks. And here, ROIs in these cases it's months, sometimes even weeks. But
Mm.
there's also midterm, as you said, right? So it's kind of vision. Okay, we have to change now. For not, as the first case that I mentioned, the lady that's gonna retire, they can't find anyone who's gonna want to do that job anymore.
Mm.
Just reading
Mm.
emails and punching things into ERP.
Mm. Mm.
And what
Mm.
we are, expecting in the coming years is that the entire generation is going to upskill and it's going to be hard to find people doing what they do now. So we also have to look at on the midterm kind of ROI, so being out of business or losing some business due to that fact.
Yeah. And do you think that people need to look at pain points? Because I know a lot of people would like to help make the case for their businesses to embrace AI, to start using it and to start piloting it. But unless you can demonstrate to the business actually these mistakes or this inefficiency is costing us X, then it's hard to make the business case. If you're saying our headcount's not an immediate benefit, headcount cuts are not an immediate benefit. So look at those pain points and look at the cost to the business and say, look, we can
Sure.
reduce that.
Yeah, definitely, I would say, but like, the one that really moves the needle is usually what I see when, you're preparing a business case, you're talking about what we can do. It's either the headcount or in the couple of use cases that I presented, one was actually cost revenue. So getting
Mm,
money back for the repairs. This doesn't
mm,
have anything to do with headcount. So you're right. And the other one was basically making decision whether we, just give away some of the revenue or we keep it and adopt some technology. So the old, let's say the legacy technology, there is no ROI, but with new technologies there is. So there is like it's opening a new window for sure, where ROI makes sense, and there are like a lot of other cases where it needs a bit more work.
yeah,
And maybe on that one, we also discussed a bit about the margins, right? So this is always supply chain is all about margins, right? So and
sure.
how can AI impact the margins? You talked about, yeah, we have to change, and then again, this is again bottom line, right? So how do you see that fit into the whole picture?
How, tell me what you mean exactly, Tom?
So, for instance, what are your expectations from
Mm,
AI
mm.
impacting also the bottom line of companies, which are margins in supply chain?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the easy ones to look at is going to be waste reduction, for example.
Hmm.
That's a very concrete. That's what every company is trying to reduce, right? And it could be fresh produce, but it could be just shelf life. It could be, defunct, out of date products, and companies are looking at that as a major cost. So I think that's a definite area for
Hmm.
margin, I would say. But I think part of the driver is actually about speed to react. And it builds into all sorts of different areas that people talk to me about. But um, actually, what they see is they could lose opportunities to sell if they don't have the product right. That's the worst thing in supply chain, right? Empty
Hmm.
shelf, effectively, be it real or virtual. So companies want to get that market sensing, that sensing signal quicker, and actually have the systems be able to talk to each other and be able to join up end to end so that they can react quickly. And that also builds into disruption, right? Which we've seen tons of disruption over the past X number of years. And companies want to be able to formulate those what if plans. As you said to me earlier, you can have a product, and if it's missing a screw, the product can't go out. And it's big in automotive, for example. What if that paint is only actually sourced from one place in the world, but it's so far down our tier three supply chain that we don't know about it. So I think
Hmm.
there's a very concrete lost opportunity if they don't pick up on these signals and if the
Yeah.
systems can't talk to each other, right?
So it's not just about margins, what you're saying, right? It's also the cost of opportunity cost here, or
Yeah,
cost of not doing anything. So that
exactly.
makes a lot of sense. Being faster, being more responsive, and by that
Yeah,
staying in the game or being ahead of curve. That makes
exactly.
total sense, right? So, and maybe on that shell, bombshell, so to move to our kind of the next section. So talking about the killer app, right? So you talked about that. You talk about this topic with your
Yeah.
interviews a lot. So maybe just to highlight a bit, what is the killer app that is most frequently perceived by your colleagues?
Yeah, exactly. I think the killer app, what people said to me and what the clear direction that was coming out, the killer app will be forecasting, right? I think a few people said it to me that at the moment they see AI as probabilistic and not generation, not generative. Obviously, there's Gen AI, and
Mhm.
within a different context. But it's good at statistical forecasting, but can it actually start to help them predict the future, which is what demand planners have to do, right? We're just trying to predict the future, and so anything above a 70% accuracy is best in class, right? You will get organizations who tell you they're 98% accurate, but most will tell you their forecast isn't very good. And most will also tell you that that's the thing, you can get very hung up on that in supply chain. And it's where they're screwed. No one wants to put their name against a number, right? Because the number's always wrong. It's just how wrong it is. So so the killer app, it makes sense, right? They're saying the killer app is actually being able to pull in all these sources of information, get a complete market picture, and give us a better forecast, and remove the human bias, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
which is one of the things that AI is known to do.
And so I completely agree with you, right? So, but the quality. So, with my team, we have some experience building demand forecast also tools in our previous company, and one of the biggest challenges at the point was basically data quality. Even though like using AI algorithms, as you said, so LLMs in that sense do not have that much in part of this, but still taking also additional context from, stock forecast, taking the material which made up most of the price into account, and, how and kind of correct the forecast based on that. But at the end, it stopped at the data quality that was, captured
Mm,
within the company, right? So especially with large companies, you have intercompany sales, and which date counts, which not, and you have to bring that context in. And that then brings me, so it's not just data, it's also about the context. And with AI agents, it's an LLMs is just the same. Maybe it's easier to transfer that, context, explain it because it can work in natural language. But still, that context in our discussion previously, you said, well, people are a bit afraid of, demand forecast. So they say, well, I
mm,
would do it differently. I'm not agreeing with that. It can be biased, but it
mm,
can be also more context they have, right? Because they know this guy in that company, they talked, and actually, no, they're not moving to that direction. They're just working one shift. So they have additional context that if AI does not have, it cannot take into account, right? So I think in the next 5 years, also, talking to professional and supply chain, let's say at Manifest 2 weeks ago, it's always the same, right? So putting a lot of effort in the coming years to bring in the context, to clean the data, it's going to be
mm.
a heavy lifting for all enterprises, I think, at
Yeah,
this point. Yeah.
yeah, no, absolutely agree with you. Completely agree with you. And I think context is why people think, perceive that humans make better decisions at the moment, right? Because they say AI can give me an ideal, unconstrained picture or set of answers, but ultimately we need humans to give us the context. But I guess you would say that that's where Nordoon, can come in, and that's where agents can actually provide that context, right? I mean, what's the
Yeah. So
state
yeah.
of play there?
Exactly, yeah. So AI agents are really good at jumping between silos. So humans are still, we are better than that. We're still better than AI agents. So we can pick up the phone, we can look
Yeah.
into SAP, our Excel file, email box, we can, drive somewhere and check something with our own eyes. But still, we have to provide that context when we're, building AI agents for the individual domain or individual process. It has to be transferred from human mind to AI agent in order to operate effectively. And that basically also heading to the next kind of question, what we see on the market is, what is working and what's not currently. So it's more or less very focused solutions, like focused AI agents working in certain verticals, come with certain domain already, and it's easier to transfer that knowledge from a person to AI agent and get that running faster and get to
Mm.
that ROI versus more generalistic platforms like Microsoft Copilot, for instance, that we some challenges on the market with our customers. I don't know what's your take on this one? So
On
basically, vertical versus more horizontal approach.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think we probably agree on this that actually a vertical approach is where people are seeing success and horizontal solutions are, well, it depends again who you're talking to, right? But a lot of the sort of mid-sized companies will tell you that they can't swallow the size of horizontal applications, so they need to look vertically. I mean, is
Mhm.
that what you see as well?
Yeah, yeah. So I am. It makes both is valid, right? I think that
Mm,
this. for the market, and market is big enough for both, I would say. For big
Mm,
companies like SAP, we also talked, we had a panel like 2 weeks ago in Silicon Valley with also SAP was present, and they're building this large platform that's kind of positioned between the customer and supplier. And it makes sense for large companies, right? So they're working
mm,
on standardization for decades. Whereas for smaller companies, their value add is flexibility,
mm,
and standardization is quite the opposite of that. So if you're going to go and standardize that, you're going to kill them. So they have to be flexible, and they have to search then different tools that make sense for them. So I think
mm,
that first time in the history when we're talking about AI agents, at least from a concept perspective, and we can bring it to life, this is the first time in history we can actually make it work, right? So I think it's going
mm.
to really be exciting in the coming years to see that coming to life.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
And maybe on that bombshell, we already kind of touched the people, right? So and how they have to be in the loop.
Mm,
And I wonder, talking to your to your interviewees, what
mm.
what was their take on, humans versus machines or AI agents are, complementing, or, are they like, job killers? What they think about it?
Yeah, I think I, I mean most people are looking into a crystal ball, and they can foresee, they obviously foresee that that jobs will shift, right? Jobs will change. But I mean, I had a whole range of perspectives, right? Some people even said to me that AI can actually help us retain our staff. We work in an industry where we're struggling to get new blood, the best talent in. But actually, if things become, sort of natural language, if planners can create code just by prompting it, then actually it can help us retain people. So I saw a whole range of perspectives, which, that's something I hadn't really thought about or considered, and but it kind of makes sense, right? Um, through to people saying, well, actually, we will need fresh talent in, and we do need a whole new raft of talent, to do these things. I guess it depends on whether you're, looking to develop things in-house, right? Which, again, maybe surprisingly, quite a few companies are exploring that route, versus how do we use an AI tool, which is a lot, always seems a lot more logical to me. Uh,
Makes sense, right? So our experience is like this, that we I believe that first of all it's going to be enhancement, right? So and a
mm,
lot of work needs to be done to upskill people, to transfer that knowledge from
yeah.
humans mind to AI agents, and then to clean up the data, and then also improving and refining the processes by doing so. And and I think, like, just basically put it in a larger context. I was just in Manifest, as mentioned, in Vegas,
Mm,
and there was an AWS representative, and they mentioned, well, that how they're building their applications, they always keep humans in the loop, right? So
yeah.
and he also suggested that, right? So they would kind of move more into a tower overlooking the processes, and just solving the last 1% or 0.5% of the cases which are too ambiguous. And that means that
Mm,
basically upskilling them, and also the entire market as we know it, like a HR market, will upskill automatically, because now the technology that is available, it's for free, and it's for everyone at the same time, right? So
mm, mm,
there's going to be, I guess, hard to outsource some
mm,
of these jobs to anywhere, because all of us are using now the LLMs.
yeah.
So it's quite exciting, what we can expect in the coming years, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's always easy to think of parallels, isn't it? But the parallel that I'm thinking of as you're saying that is self-driving cars, right? There are cars out there that can perfectly well self-drive, right? And they can do so more safely than you or I could drive. But actually, you're still required to keep your hands on the wheel, right? You're not allowed
Hmm.
to go to sleep. And there's a reason for
Okay,
that. You still
exactly.
need that human oversight, right? And that's what the overwhelming trend was, that in the people that I spoke to. Um, I think there was only one organization that foresaw taking the humans out completely, and they said the forecast is going to be so much better, and we're already trialing this, and we're getting 80% better accuracy by taking humans out completely in the trial that they've done so far. The rest of people will say humans still make better decisions, and you need that oversight. You need that human oversight.
Yeah, but overall, it's people's business, right? If you want a
Yeah.
machine to work with in a people environment, they need a model for it, right? So, and our biggest advantage is improvisation. So we don't need a model for that, right? So, but we also make mistakes from the same reason. So it goes both directions, I guess. And um, so maybe from that perspective, Ed, to kind of trying to close it up a bit here, what would you say that what is the one thing that enterprises should focus on when adopting AI?
Yeah, and I noticed that we've got a question in. I'm just looking at the
Oh,
questions as well, Tom.
yeah, yeah,
But
there are questions coming in. That's great.
yeah, somebody has asked, what's the biggest mistake companies make when rolling out AI in their supply chains? Um,
Yeah,
so
maybe you can take this one.
well, it kind of potentially links in, right? But from the people that I've spoken to, maybe it's obvious, maybe it isn't. But actually, I think probably don't let this be. Well, firstly, don't do nothing. You know, take small steps, right? And I spoke to companies that were sort of nudging their employees because obviously we're humans and we hate change, right? Um, but they were nudging their employees and their staff to actually start using AI as part of their day to day by actually taking away one of the main web browsers. You know, they said we're taking Chrome off everyone's company laptop and they're having to use Microsoft Edge, for example, just to sort of nudge them forwards. But I think to answer what I wanted to answer that kind of links into that question. I think you have to have like a steering committee, right? You have to have a working group. Yeah, but that has to be cross-representational. So, I've heard it before in different contexts as well that something can't just be a supply chain initiative. And in this context, it can't just be your IT department that look at this. You have to have representation from the CEO or the board right through the main functions of the business to actually sort of lead a charge and make sure that you're representing all the views of the business. That would be one of the recommendations that I would make based on what people are telling me.
I completely
What
agree,
about
right?
you?
So
What's your
yeah, so kind of my take on this is as you said, right? So leadership being having leadership on board is one of the most important things. For sure, that keeps the wheel spinning, as well as that interdepartmental communication and collaboration is very important to exchange the knowledge and experience. And I think, like as you said at the beginning, just start. I think this is a really good one. That would be kind of my same recommendation. I would also take words from uh, EVP supply chain from it was previous from a company from previous company, a customer. He said, well, this POC was the cheapest workshop for my team, right? So
Mm,
you can't learn that if you go to the workshops, but if you have to make it, live in your company, that's how you learn, right? So, and you're gonna fail. That's true, and you're gonna fail normally in expectations and underestimating how much work you have to do on your data and processes, like
mm,
always. So
mm,
there is no new answer, I would say, on this one.
mm.
Well, we have yet another question.
Mhm.
So, how can you avoid investing in AI solution that might become obsolete in few years?
No, I think you better answer that one, Tom.
Yeah. Oh, well, I don't think, again, for the same reason as we said before, right? So it's all about, getting started, to realize that you have a lot of work. Technology will evolve, technology will change. The biggest issue that you'll have in your company, I would say, what we see is onboarding, right? So how do you
Mm,
transfer that knowledge to people? How do you get your colleagues to use the technology in everyday's operation, where they're always waiting or kind of comparing between how I do it now and how I'm doing it using, technology? They would seldomly say, well, I do it faster, but that doesn't scale, right? And it doesn't work out if you change that. So I don't think that's it's hard to say, but basically the AI is now going to be in every piece of software if it's not. And the technologies are developing so quickly, and everybody tries to keep up. So I think that's it's nothing wrong to perceive that.
Sure.
Uh, Okay, so then maybe the last one that we can take, and then we'll have to close it up. So,
Hmm.
how soon can you realistically expect see ROI from AI-driven automation in supply chain operations? Okay, so
Hmm.
maybe Ed, did you talk about that with your interviewees? So,
Yeah,
what was their take on that one?
yeah, and I've got to say, it wasn't the most positive set of answers that you might be hoping for. Because I think people are saying, look, you have to start trying, and you have to have an adventurous mindset to do these things because they're not looking to make it, headcount reductions in the next month or the next year. Because they don't see it as a tool for that. I think they see it as an exploratory phase, and that's easy for a big company to do, right? It's easy to say, well, we can do this, and we don't have to put ROI against it. If it's a more defined and if it's about reducing cost and being more efficient, then actually you do need to put ROI on it. And companies won't wait 2 or 3 years or 5 years, for ROI, as you well know. There's a
Yep.
demand to do things now and prove the case now. Otherwise, it's cut, right?
No, I completely agree. So I think it can be, as mentioned before, it can be weeks to 2 years, right? So it's kind
Mm.
of that spectrum. Maybe look for those that are super quick, and that's going to get your management excited, and you can, ride on this wave to also sort out all other more strategic things. They're gonna take like more time, I guess. And since we are just at the end, maybe add some final remarks.
Yeah, I mean,
Where people can find you, where
oh
they
yeah.
can find your report. That would be great
Yeah,
to
yeah,
share.
yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Tom. Yeah, so go to just Google Intent Group, go to the website, and on there is the guide section, and you can download that for free and have a read of it and see what other people are saying. So that's the resource if people want to have a look at that.
Thank you so much. We'll also make sure to share that link. And I would also like to thank you so much for watching, for participating. Let us know if you have any further questions regarding the use cases or getting to rapid ROIs, or just want to see how the AI agent work. So happy to chat with you. There is also my email that's going to be in the follow-up email. So a pleasure. Thank you so much, Ed, also for coming and for sharing your insights.
Thanks for having me, Tom. Nice to talk to you.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.